Hello everyone, my name is Lyon and this is my case presentation for MGMT-3013. So the case I chose is titled A Political Game. Under D2L it's titled Power and Political Behavior 1. Again, I'm Lyon, I'll be presenting. So a little bit of background info on the case. This is what was given to us and we'll assess and analyze and we'll come to some conclusions. So, Roger Allen was a man on the move. Everyone in the firm felt that someday he would be company president. To listen to his boss, Harry Walden, it was only a matter of time before Roger would be at the helm. The current president of the firm was a marketing person. She had worked her way up from field salesperson to president by selling both the product and her competency to customers and the company alike. In a manner of speaking, the marketing department was the well-oiled road to the top. Roger was the #1 salesperson and, according to the grapevine, was due to get Harry Walden's job when the latter retired in 2 years. However, Roger was not sure that he wanted to be vice president of marketing. Another slot was opening up in international sales. Roger knew nothing about selling to Europe, but this was the firm's first venture outside of the United States, and he thought he might like to give it a try. He talked to Harry about it, but the vice president tried to discourage him. In fact, Harry seemed to think that Roger was crazy to consider this job at all. "Rog," he said, "that's no place for you. Things are soft and cozy back here. You do not have to prove yourself to anyone. You're #1 around here. Just sit tight and you will be president. Do not go out and make some end runs. Just keep barreling up the middle for 4 yards on each carry and you'll score the big touchdown." Roger was not convinced. He thought that perhaps it would be wise to discuss the matter with the president herself. This he did. The president was very interested in Roger's ideas about international marketing. "If you really think you'd like to head up this office for us, I'll recommend you for the job." After thinking the matter over carefully, Roger decided that he would much rather go to Europe and try to help establish a foothold over there than sit back and wait for the stateside opening. He told his decision to Harry. "Harry, I've talked to the president, and she tells me that this new opening in international sales is really going to get a big push from the company. It's where the action is. I realize that I could sit back here and take it easy for the next couple of years, but I think I'd rather have the international job." Harry again told Roger that he was making a mistake. "You're throwing away a golden opportunity. However, if you want it, I'll support you." A week later, when the company selected someone else from sales to head the international division, Roger was crushed. The president explained the situation to him in this way. "I thought you wanted the job, and I pushed for you. However, the other members of the selection committee voted against me. I can tell you that you certainly did not sell Harry very strongly on your idea. He led the committee to believe that you were really undecided about the entire matter. In fact, I felt rather foolish telling them how excited you were about the whole thing, only to have Harry say that he had talked to you since that time, and you were not that sure at all. When Harry got done, the committee figured you had changed your mind after talking to me, and they went on to discuss other likely candidates." So some of the key issues that I took away from the above case that we just read. First, I think it's important to recognize and establish the hierarchy that we see. So Roger Allen is the man who we follow. He is the top salesman in the marketing department, and he is directly under Harry Walden, who is the vice president of marketing. So Harry Walden is his direct boss. Harry Walden is under, of course, the president of the company, as we see her named. So I think it's important to establish that hierarchy. It'll help us understand some things later. We read that Roger is a dedicated and efficient worker. He's well known this way throughout the company as the top salesperson. So he is known by his coworkers as the top salesperson, and even to Harry is known that he has potential to go all the way to top management. So next I note that Harry has a course that he wants Roger to follow. Harry wants Roger to take his position in 2 years once Harry retires, and then would work his way up to president from there. Harry says that that's the well-oiled track to the top, but Roger ultimately decides against this route. So after that, Roger meets with the president, and she is on board with him taking the international sales position. She says that she will vouch for him if he wants the job. After this, however, Harry says that he supports Roger's decision for trying for the international sales position, but then he lies about his conversations with Roger in a meeting about the position, which ends up costing Roger the job. So the first case question that we have is, who had power in this organization, and specifically what type of power did Harry Walden have? So I think it's true that it can be seen that every character we observe, that's Roger, Harry, and the president, all show some level of power or status. So starting with Roger, we remember the hierarchy of positions that we just saw from the background info. We know that Roger has at least some small level of expert power in the realm of sales because he has proven himself as the #1 salesman in the company. But he also shows small levels of referent power as he seems to be liked by his coworkers because of the great salesman that he is. It's said that Roger is known throughout the company as the top salesman that would give him a slight bit of referent power. Although he held this power, however, both Harry and the president reside in the zone of indifference toward Roger. His expert power in sales did not have much influence over the two of them and their day-to-day routines in their job. So next we talk about the president. Obviously, the president holds the most power, as is the case with most corporations. The form of power that she shows in this scenario is both expert power and legitimate power. She has legitimate power because the company has in some way agreed that she should be president of the company, whether that be through voting, through shareholder decisions. There has been some sort of process that has placed her at the head of the company. The employees under her have accepted that they are going to be influenced by her. She's also shown to have some level of expert power because, as we read, she worked her way up from the company through marketing, so she must have a great deal of experience in the area, especially as she moved through the stages. So we see that the president has both both expert and legitimate power. And then we get to Harry, who here is shown to have coercive power. Harry has much more power than Roger does, as Roger is directly under Harry. Harry is his boss. The form of power we see Harry use is that of coercive power. When Roger did something that Harry did not agree with, Harry was able to cause an unpleasant experience for Roger. That's textbook coercive power in action. So in this example, it was blocking Roger from getting the international sales job by what he said in the company meeting. In a little side, this type of behavior is growing more and more consistent, and it's growing more and more common in today's workplaces, and its negative side effects have unfortunately grown with it. In an article called Organizational Politics and Workplace Deviance in Unionized Settings, Mediating Role of Job Stress and Moderating Role of Resilience, the author Mohsin Bashir writes this: the illegitimate, that's non-sanctioned, tactics of politics, for example, manipulation, control of information, blaming or attacking others, using surrogates, etc., all of these entail undesirable social behaviors and deviate from organizational goals and norms. Previous researchers have recognized the negative consequences of such behaviors at individual and organizational levels, such as a lesser performance, decreased organizational citizenship behavior, reduction in morale, increase in interpersonal conflict, and work withdrawal behaviors. So that's the type of powers that we see from them. So case question 2 is, do you think Roger played company politics well? If so, why didn't he get the international sales job? So we see that somebody else gets the international sales position. I believe Roger played company politics somewhat well, but could have done a few things that would have widened his opportunity for the international sales position. Sometimes, as is the case with Harry, managers will be bitter and adverse. They'll have bitter reactions to one of their employees moving up. It's just the nature of some people. Bad managers like Harry will act on this, as we see Harry doing here. He makes up information about Roger and about conversations that did not happen with Roger in order to bring him down. That's what we talked about, the coercive power before. Ultimately, we see it was Harry's behavior that stopped Roger from getting the job. I believe that if Roger could go back in his talk with Harry after he talked to the president and have been more direct and clear about his purposes, the situation may have played out differently. For example, Roger could have said, Harry, I understand that you believe the best route to success is taking your position in a few years. And while I do appreciate your input, I think I will try my own way on this one. It is riskier, and it may not end up with me in the president position, but I believe I want to try. I know it's not the traditional route, but I feel very strongly about pursuing this option. I hope you can understand. This way, Roger is assuming the blame of potential failure on himself, and he's acknowledging why he is choosing not to follow the route that Harry desires. This level of open communication could have helped Roger avoid Harry's coercive actions. So that's the key here, is open communication, and we see this a lot in organizational theory and organizational behavior. As Abraham Zalesnik writes in the Harvard Business Review magazine in 2014, he writes it this way: What distinguishes alterations in the authority structure from other types of organizational change is their direct confrontation with the political character of corporate life. Such confrontations are real manipulations of power as compared with the indirect approaches which play on ideologies and attitudes. So, this approach is a more direct confrontation with the political character of this specific workplace, and thus, as Zeleznik states, it could manipulate the power balances to align them to a healthier state. So the third case question and the final case question was, at this point, what would you do if you were Roger? What political strategies could be used? So, if I were Roger, I would first clear things up with the president. I would make sure she is aware of the things that Harry said in the staff meeting and make sure that she understands that they were not true, and emphasize that Roger's desire for the position did not change. Secondly, if I chose to remain in my previous position with Harry as my supervisor, if I chose to remain the number one salesperson, I would try to set up a meeting with the president and with Harry in order to facilitate an open discussion and communication about the situation. This particular political strategy would help dissolve tension between each group member and hopefully stir the firm to move towards a more supportive organizational climate. Both of these political behaviors, them being open communication and creating a supportive organizational environment, fall under the idea of using social power. That's power used to create motivation and accomplish group goals instead of personal power, which is the opposite, which is using power for personal gain. So I feel that using the social power side of power, we talk about the two faces of power, one social, one personal, relying more on the social side, it would cause a chain of reactions that would help to restore the status quo from before the incident occurred. What this would do would ensure that no further hostility that could come out later is lingering in either Harry or Roger or even in the president. This just makes sure that to be able to move forward, there creates a healthier context and a healthier climate in the work environment. So in conclusion, I think it's important to note that this case is one that is very possible in a real-world job environment. Politics in work environments are a real thing. They cannot be ignored, but nor should they be. Instead, they need to be monitored. They need to be assessed in a way that is healthy, in a way that grows the environment instead of brings it down. I think healthy political work environments, they cause a greater sense of motivation and higher work ethic. We've seen studies on this, and these are known facts. These are quantifiable facts. That as we see a political work environment in a healthy state, we see higher motivation, we see higher work ethic. However, sometimes that same political power, it can be used for negative reasons, as we see Harry do in the case study. There are definitely steps that Roger could have taken to avoid the situation, but at the end of the day, there's only so much that one single person can do in changing the climate of a work environment. If change needed to happen, it would take more than just Roger standing up against Harry in the way that he managed. It would take his employees and other managers and other people who are not involved in the situation to rise up and talk and address things that need to be changed in order to see a noticeable positive change. So that's my conclusion, and then here are the references that I used. And that is my presentation. Thank you for listening.